The sun beat down relentlessly over the cracked tarmac of Fairview Regional Airport, the heat shimmering off the ground like a mirage. Darius Cole wiped the sweat from his brow with a sleeve already drenched in engine oil. He stood there, in his torn coveralls, the same boots he'd had for years now scuffed and worn from countless shifts spent under the hoods of machines nobody cared to understand, let alone respect. The men around him, in their polished vests, barked into radios, ignoring the mechanic who had spent the better part of 15 years keeping engines running without so much as a thank you. But today it was different. Darius had spent years keeping the planes running, small ones, old ones, the kind that only the small airports could afford. But today, a jet the kind you'd only see in magazines or maybe a private hangar at the airport's far end was sputtering on the runway. It had just pulled to a jarring stop, black smoke billowing out of the engine as it coughed and spluttered like a dying animal. And there was nothing anyone could do about it, except Darius. The crowd had gathered near the chain-link fence that separated the hangars from the runway. Phones were out, recording everything. Whispers filled the air. The plane's logo gleamed in gold on the side. Wellington Enterprises. That name meant something. Everyone in Fairview knew it. Eleanor Wellington, the woman who owned this jet, was royalty in the billionaire world. Aerospace companies, tech firms, half of Houston's skyline, everything had her name on it. But today, it was hers, the jet, the one that was on fire, her mess. Darius stood at the edge of the crowd, his eyes scanning the chaos. The fire truck idled on the runway, unsure whether to rush in or wait for orders. 3 men in maintenance uniforms stood frozen, staring at the machine that had once been a symbol of power, now sputtering in distress. And then, Eleanor herself appeared at the jet's cabin door, stepping out with a grace that seemed to defy the madness around her. She was nothing like the photos in magazines. She was different, taller, sharper, in control. Her white suit flared in the wind, her hair pulled back into a no-nonsense bun. Her eyes scanned the scene, looking for answers, and then her gaze landed on him. "You," she called across the chaos. Her voice, clear and commanding, cut through the noise. Darius froze for a second, looking around, unsure if she was speaking to him. "You, come here now," she shouted again. Laughter rippled through the crew around him. One of the ground crew men snorted. "She can't be serious. That guy? He's not even on payroll." Another one added, "He's just a grease monkey. He can't fix a jet." But something inside Darius snapped. It wasn't about being recognized or respected. It was about doing the damn job when no one else would. He squared his shoulders, took a breath, and started walking towards her. Step by step, his boots hit the runway like war drums. The air around him felt heavy with disbelief as he got closer to the jet, the sound of alarms blaring from the undercarriage. He dropped to his knees, ignoring the heat from the engine, the gasps of disbelief from behind him. There were no fancy tools, no diagnostic equipment, just his hands. Just his instincts, the same instincts that had kept him alive through endless shifts and ungrateful customers. He reached into the smoking panel, his skin burning from the heat, and twisted a valve that no one else had noticed. The jet groaned, then fell silent. Clear. Stable. For a moment, no one moved. The whole airport seemed to be holding its breath. Eleanor stood at the edge of the crowd, her eyes locked onto him, and for the first time, Darius felt seen. But she wasn't done yet. She stepped forward, her heels clicking as she approached him. Without a word, she dropped to one knee. The world stopped. It was like time itself had frozen. The ground crew, the executives, even the pilot, they all stood in shock as one of the most powerful women in the country knelt before a mechanic whose clothes were torn, whose hands were black with oil, whose name was barely known in the world he had spent so long working in. Darius didn't speak. He couldn't. His mind raced, trying to process what was happening. It felt like a dream. Eleanor reached into her blazer pocket, pulled out a silver ring not dazzling with diamonds, but engraved with the insignia of her company, the emblem on the side of the jet. She held it up toward him, her voice steady and unwavering. "Your hands just saved a machine worth more than most buildings in Manhattan," she said, her eyes never leaving his. "But what impressed me more is that you did it when no one believed in you, not even the people paid to fix it. You acted. You led. You saw what no one else did." Behind him, the ground crew whispered, "This can't be real." One man chuckled nervously, trying to lighten the mood. She's probably just messing around. But there was no humor on Eleanor's face. She stood up, still holding the ring, and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "This man just prevented a jet fuel explosion," she said, her voice ringing out. "That engine was seconds from catching fire. I know. I designed it." She turned to the watching crowd, her voice rising in convy tie-in. "I watched all of you freeze, while this man stepped forward. No title, no badge, no clearance, just raw skill and heart." She turned back to Darius. "So here's my question, Mr. Cole," she said, her voice firm and clear. "I have thousands of employees. I sit across from world leaders. But I've never met a man like you. Would you marry me?" Silence. No one laughed. No one moved. Darius's heart raced. His entire life, every humiliation, every knockback, every failure flashed before his eyes. He thought about the nights he'd slept in his truck, the months without steady work, the job interviews where he was ignored before he even spoke. Now, standing before him was one of the wealthiest women in the world, asking him a question that felt like it came from a dream. He looked at her, at the ring, at the jet behind her, now silent, calm, and then back to her. "Why me?" he asked, his voice cracking under the weight of the moment. Eleanor smiled, slow and genuine. "Because while the world waits for permission, you act without it. And that's the man I want beside me." Before Darius could answer, a black SUV screeched onto the runway. Two men in suits jumped out and rushed toward Eleanor. One of them shouted, "Ma'am, we need to talk right now." Eleanor's smile faded. Her poised exterior faltered for a moment as the men approached, their faces tense, their eyes filled with urgency. The crowd, once in awe, now buzzed with murmurs and whispers. "Ms. Wellington, we have a situation," one of the men said, his voice firm. "The board is not pleased with recent events, and there are questions about the jet's maintenance. They want answers before you proceed." Eleanor's jaw tightened. She glanced back at Darius, her eyes searching his face for something, maybe reassurance, maybe strength. Darius stood still, rooted to the spot. He could feel the pressure building, a tension in the air that threatened to suffocate him. But what was clear now was that this was bigger than just fixing a jet. This was about something far more important. Eleanor raised her hand, silencing the crowd. "Darius Cole is the man who saved this jet and everyone aboard," she declared, her voice ringing out with undeniable authority. "And if anyone doubts him, they'll have to answer to me." Darius looked at her, his heart swelling with a sense of pride he never thought he'd feel. Eleanor stood there, unflinching, a fierce protector, a woman who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo for what was right. The men in suits exchanged glances, then nodded. One of them spoke quietly to Eleanor, his tone softer. "The board expects a full report by tomorrow morning. They want to know who authorized this mechanic to work on the jet without official clearance." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "They'll get their report. But for now, I'm standing by the man who saved my life and my company's future." Darius took a deep breath. The weight of her words hit him harder than anything else. This wasn't just about fixing a jet. It was about fighting for respect, for dignity, for a chance to rewrite the story that had defined him for so long. Just then, a reporter from a local news station pushed through the crowd, microphone in hand. "Ms. Wellington, can you tell us what happened here today, and who is this man you just proposed to?" Cameras flashed. The crowd hushed. Eleanor looked at Darius with a mixture of pride and something softer admiration. "This man is a hero," she said simply, "and he's about to change everything." Darius's heart pounded in his chest. For the first time in his life, he was not in Seibel. The weight of every eye on him felt heavy, but for once, it wasn't suffocating. It was a reminder that he was here. He was real. He mattered. The future was uncertain. The runway stretched long before him. But for the first time, Darius Cole was ready to step into it. What do you think? Was Darius right to act when no one believed in him? Do you think Eleanor's decision to stand by him was the right move? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it.